So I think it's evident to most people that have been following along with the net neutrality issue that FCC Chairman Ajit Pai is perhaps one of the most corrupt, if not the most corrupt, FCC head ever. Now, that perception that the public has of him that he's corrupt, I mean, it's widespread. I don't really know anyone who cares about net neutrality that doesn't think he's in bed with internet service providers who are trying to profit more by screwing us over. Now, he is being sued by multiple states. The Attorney General's office in New York is investigating him. And now, unfortunately for Ajit Pai, his own agency is looking into him potentially being corrupt because of policy changes he made at the behest of a company he's in bed with. Carl Bode of Vice reports FCC boss Ajit Pai is being investigated by his own agency over potential corruption allegations. The already unpopular agency boss has been on a tear in recent months, gutting decades-old media consolidation rules designed to protect consumers and the nation's media markets from any one broadcaster becoming too powerful. Pai's efforts arrived, not coincidentally, at the same time Sinclair Broadcasting Group is attempting to acquire Tribune Media as part of a $3.9 billion mega merger. It's a deal a bipartisan chorus of critics say would demolish media diversity, resulting in Sinclair owning more than 230 local stations across 72% of the United States. Given criticism of Sinclair for its often distorted and inaccurate news reporting, consumer advocates say the deal would have a profoundly negative impact on the quality and diversity of media discourse, as well as already dwindling competition in the space. Without Pai's assistance on this front, the Sinclair merger would have been impossible. Now, the New York Times indicates that the FCC's Inspector General has launched an investigation into whether Pai acted inappropriately as he rushed to dismantle media consolidation rules. Late last year, the top internal watchdog for the FCC opened an investigation into whether Mr. Pai and his aides had improperly pushed for the rule changes and whether they had timed them to benefit Sinclair, the report states. It was unclear the extent of the Inspector General's investigation or when it might conclude, but the inquiry puts a spotlight on Mr. Pai's decisions and whether there had been coordination with the company, said the Times. It may also force him to answer questions that he has so far avoided addressing in public. The inquiry joins a rotating crop of other investigations into Pai's behavior during his first controversial year as agency head. A GAO inquiry is also looking into why Pai's FCC appears to have made up a DDoS attack in order to try and downplay massive public opposition to the agency's repeal of popular net neutrality rules. Pai's agency is also facing numerous lawsuits over allegations that Pai ignored the public as he rushed to repeal those rules. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman penned an open letter to Pai last year, effectively accusing him of blocking a law enforcement inquiry into the numerous bogus comments that flooded the agency in support of its unpopular repeal. Pai has frequently made light of concerns he's too cozy with the giant corporations he's supposed to be holding accountable, and while these investigations and lawsuits may or may not culminate in evidence of corruption or violation of agency rules, Pai's policies alone leave few questions about where his loyalties lie. Yeah, that pretty much says exactly what we all feel. Look, we all know that he's corrupt, but I think that the question is, how effective has he been really at covering up his tracks? And I'm inclined to believe that he hasn't been very effective at covering his tracks because he's done a lot of things that rouse suspicion. So, for example, he's not complying with requests from the New York Attorney General's office to hand over information. He's ignored Freedom of Information Act requests. So if you really covered your tracks well, you would comply with these requests because, I mean, you would have hidden corruption. But as we learned last week, he won't even release details about the skit he created with the Verizon executive. So Gizmodo tried to obtain details about the skit that he made with them, just to really see how deep that relationship goes and if they talked about more than the skit potentially. And he refused to even turn over that. So I'm inclined to believe that he is ignoring all of these FOIA requests and not giving us information because he's trying to clean up his mess. He's trying to clean up this mess that he made and cover his tracks more because he's been very sloppily corrupt. So for him to be just brazenly corrupt and for us to find a quid pro quo, I think that's a possibility. I don't know. I mean, it's evident that he's potentially obstructing justice now by constantly and repeatedly rejecting any information requests that the New York Attorney General's office has submitted. I mean, even Eric Schneiderman's office has accused him of blocking law enforcement from doing their job. So for him to be investigated by his own agency for corruption, can they find something? Potentially. But right now we know he's scrambling to make sure that they don't find what we're most likely going to find. So I don't know if this will actually lead to anything, but I am happy that it's getting done, because Ajit Pai, I mean, to say that he's the worst FCC boss ever is an understatement, but I think he may be up there with one of the worst agency bosses in the history of this country. He's that bad. He's so brazenly corrupt that he flaunts it in front of our faces. And it's not like he got in office and just has, been slowly chipping away at all the progress we made with regard to net neutrality. He repealed it the first year he became FCC chairman. He dismantled a lot of Obama-era regulations that we fought for after Obama decided to appoint a Comcast lobbyist to the FCC. So we fought him, and we finally got him to our side. And he did come to our side after, kicking and screaming. We had to drag him, but we got a lot of regulations that we've been fighting for years. And now Ajit Pai got in there and like that, got rid of all of them. So are we going to find something? I don't know, but this investigation is absolutely warranted, and I have no doubt that he's corrupt. It's just a matter of whether or not we can find the evidence to prove that he's corrupt and potentially kick him out, impeach him at a minimum, potentially indict him, because corruption, quid pro quos, that's not acceptable. We know it's happening, but we've got to find the evidence, and I think that this investigation is absolutely necessary. This segment of the Humanist Report was brought to you by 7coffeeroasters.com. They're a minority-owned small business in Seattle, and they specialize in roasting unique and delicious coffee that's not actually roasted until you've placed your order. And the best part is that they actually ship out all orders within 24 hours, so you get your coffee and it still tastes fresh when it arrives. And to boot, they're also a progressive company that pays their workers a living wage and actually cares about the country. So to support them and experience the deliciousness of their coffee, you can check out 7coffeeroasters.com.